The lights that shine in darkness aren't always visible under the sun. Beware the tales told by the fire's keepers. Those who control the light often hide their own shadows.
Hey, close the door, close the door, close the door.
I just want to say,
Now everybody out there listening knows there's odd things that go down in this city. Things that go bump in the night. People going missing without a trace and dark magics. But I gotta say, when things get hairy, I'm really glad we got them.
Hey, we're live.
And hey, everybody, good, just Sunday afternoon, everybody. That my name is Ninjaspence, also known as Spence, and in that we are here with another bonus roundtable. So, who do I have? Who do I have with me today at the virtual table?
Starting at the top of the list there.
Oh,
Mhm.
yeah, that would be me. I'm Basch. My name starts with a B, so naturally I go first. Yeah, I'm Basch. I've been on one or two of these before. I don't really have much else to put out.
I'm Miro, the most of the time DM, and more recently getting to enjoy being a player.
I'm Neysa. Neysa does cosplay. I do things.
I'm Nate. You know, mostly lately I've been running Mothership off and on for this group, and I'm a teacher, educator, and I've been role playing for probably about at least 20 years, if not longer. You can find me at Nate Pates Warhammer on Instagram.
All right, and thank you all so much for that. And that today that we are running a little bit late on this topic, but it is better late than never. And then that this topic is how do we handle race in our games and what do we do to promote diversity? And then that, for those that don't know, I am a POC that you have seen me up in our live footage games and stuff. But I just want to just have a discussion about basically what can we do to basically, like how do we handle it and basically how do we also promote diversity. And in that, I do think that the first things first is setting ground rules at your session 0 for that, that the game that will be having like heavy topics that may be a bit sensitive to players. So what do y'all think about that?
I'll go first if y'all want. I think it's important with any game, no matter what you're playing. If you're playing a tabletop game, because everybody has different morals and sensibilities, you need to talk about, like you said, with a session 0, make sure everybody's comfortable with certain themes. And when it comes to race, it should be reflected realistically, for sure. It shouldn't be like the controversy that happened lately with the Drow, which is just silly in my opinion. Because obviously, one entire race of people is not going to be evil. That's a very outdated. It was outdated when the Drow were written, much less now.
Session. I was going to say, a session 0 is really important to establish what everybody is or is not comfortable with, what everybody does or does not want to play. The only time that you might be able to get away with not doing that is if you have a group of players you've been playing with for a very long time and you understand what they are or are not comfortable with. Like in the Holy Winds, the Elfim theocracy has religious slaves. They have what are called penitents that you can to repent for sins or that of a family member in the eyes of the theocracy. You can sell yourself for a time period based on the grievance that you committed to the church, who will then rent you out to other people. And the only reason I was able to put that into that game without talking to folks about it first is I knew that one, the theocracy is going to be the bad guys. None of my crew was going to be, oh, I want to be a member of the theocracy. So having them do something terrible like that, I knew would be something that was, okay, it's bad. The whole group will then have something more to solidify against the other side with. And I knew everybody would be comfortable enough having that issue brought up because, I mean, they bought an NPC that had been with them for a while and that was being sold as a penitent. They bought his contract. And so now they're going to make me play a character until either I or they end up getting him killed. So making sure everybody's comfortable with that or any major issue like that is something that you do need to clarify unless you just know your table. And the only reason I was able to do is I've been playing with the Monday night crew since Forgotten Sands, which is 5-6 years now.
Neysa, you got stuff to add?
I've got a little
So
bit.
as
Go ahead,
far as
Neysa.
sorry,
No, go ahead.
there is delay. As far as a session 0 type of situation, when I was putting my groups together at our local game shop, I basically had to kind of just condense like these are the major themes that might be controversial or triggering in this storyline that I've got planned as I was talking to individual people. So we didn't really have like a session 0 per se. And honestly, the Tears of Kairos, it so far doesn't deal a lot with major issues of racial division or anything like that. The Israeli people are rather like nationalistic, like they do kind of have a bit of hierarchy, but it's not to the point where they look down their noses or spurn foreigners. But there is a definite us versus them in some aspects. Specifically, like the wanted posters for the people who made off with the stolen religious artifact. They were listed as foreigner on the wanted poster to identify that they're not Israeli. At the shop game, though, I have a few players, Spence and another lady who plays an elf or a half elf. And she, when she was making her half elf character, she made her look basically exactly like she does. She's got brown skin and dark hair that's kind of dreaded out or braided. And I have no problem with that. It wasn't something we ever discussed, but it's kind of fed into some of her characters, like story arcs and everything, that her character Molly is a essentially brown skinned elf.
Basch?
So I wanted to go back a moment to something Nate said about the drought issue. I know for me as a DM, I've always thought of the background, racial attributes and generalizations as more of a framework to use. And I highly encourage people to play whatever type of character they want. Like, if you want to be a orc who's training to become a wizard and open a library, that's something very much not the usual orc thing to do. But, you know, part of the what that character can be or can do is, you know, that struggle between what, you know, his maybe former tribe does, or, you know, maybe he's just from something else, like a tribe of scholarly orcs. As I said, this is the rule sets that are there, just frameworks, something that you can use, but you don't necessarily have to have. I know I do a lot of homebrew stuff, so a lot of what I've got in my worlds is very different from what's actually in the books.
Oh, yeah, then that, I mean, then that, you know, that's very much a good point, Bosch, because then I think that the only thing up in my world for that the revenge of Stefan Clark is that he has this reaping thing going on, which then that he basically travels around and basically captures people, and basically not only for human trafficking, but he also makes them into servitude for, you know, a city that the players have not made it to yet. But, you know, that as far as in, like, you know, as Nate said, that, you know, keeping everything like regional realistically, you know, then that just shows that you are a very creative DM, and also that you are a very strong writer to have that, you know, one aspect of world building that so many people up and that the general populace sometimes tend to forget about. And then that's basically not over generalization, which just basically brings me up into that my next to my next topic for that this first half. And then that's also like avoiding just like IRL references to some of those heated, that, you know, controversial things that people get comfortable with at times. What do y'all think about that?
I'll be honest, a lot of real world stuff I don't try to factor into my games because the idea is escapism. So if there's something currently going on, I'm going to shy away from it. Like the original idea for Holy Wind was there was going to be a plague. And then Uncle Ron or Cousin Ronnie hit, you know, Corona came through. And I was like, this doesn't seem fun now. Like being a group of people solving this disease when especially several members of because it was mostly the Monday night game that was playing at that point, had caught it or knew somebody that had, and we were all stuck at home. And so I decided to shift the storyline away from that. So I kind of avoided that. With other controversial issues, I mean, I'm not going to grab what's currently going on because, like I said, escapism, but also I can trust me, the Monday Night Crew will cause their own controversy and end up creating a group of people that hates them specifically very, very quickly because they decide to be a smartass to every single guard out there, regardless of how good or bad the guard is. So I try to avoid that simply because the point is, let's have fun, and it's my group of friends. We all know where we stand on different issues, and we usually stand on the same side of most issues. And so making a game that's a like point in tongue, like I'm not trying to put a message out there or anything like that. It's we're trying to have fun. So I don't put the modern what's happening now in to a lot of what's happening.
I think this just comes down to like who you're playing with. Certain people, like you said, just want an escape, and some people enjoy that kind of thing. So you just got to know your audience. You know, does that make sense?
100%.
No, I think there's something to be said for games that are more closely based off of real life or historical events. I know I've had a idea for a campaign set in a D&D world, but more akin to a 1920s world, like compared to our world, 1915, 1920, somewhere in there. and playing through some of these. But for the most part, I think the average person just wants to get home, jump into this fantasy game where they can be whatever they want to be, and kind of unwind and relax, and not have to worry about the trials and struggles of the day or the week or even the month.
I 100% agree with that.
I agree.
Neysa.
Like what I tend to do is I tend to go for more, like, rather than specific events or timeline specific type things, I prefer to grab like themes, motifs, and archetypes and use those as the uh, transplant aspect, I guess we could say. Specifically, Tears of Kairos. I talked about this in my DM interview. Was it's very heavily based on a lot of the themes of the Greek mythos, and even going deeper, it's based in a lot of like creation myth from the pre-Mycenaean era. And so, but those themes, there's a reason they've stuck around for like 3,000 years. It's because they still resonate, because those themes of betrayal and inherited bias and inherited traitorism, those kinds of things still resonate. And so I don't really, I at least I haven't had the opportunity to gravitate toward any like specific stuff yet. But I fall in the same vein of I don't want to pull something that's going to hit too close to home. Um, I write a lot in various platforms, and one of the things I was writing had an instance where a an epidemic, a pandemic of sorts was a background feature, and it was just the fleetingest little blip on the radar, and I hated having to put it in there, but it had to be in there for the story. And I hated having to put it in because we're in the middle of a pandemic. But I had to put like a little note like this was not intended to cause trauma kind of thing. Just it has to be there for that story. So, I don't know. It's it's hard to balance, but balance as in all things is key.
If you don't mind me interrupting, I've got two quick thoughts on that. One, you said you do a lot of writing, so I think some of those themes are relatively conducive to just a good story. Like how you've got your structure, you've got your I forget exactly what it is, but like you've got your plot and then your climax and the resolution. It's just there's structures there, and it sounds like you've got a couple that you tend to favor. And
I
my train of
mean,
thought just derailed.
yeah.
Oh,
Oh no.
I remember what I was going to say. And a lot of it does depend on your storytelling. Like you can work in like a maybe there's a sickness or illness going around or something else entirely that acts that way. It all depends on your storytelling, because I know as a DM, what I try to do is build a living, breathing world outside of my players. So while they're off doing their quests, there's other things in the world going on.
That's
Yeah, I mean, then that is very true. I mean, that for me, whenever then I am writing and stuff, that just as much as he would say that I mean, Miro, I don't want to basically bring in like some of the most recent traumatic events, because I will pull something from basically like true crime, like like for example, that there is a quest line that I have came up with that is based off of the that is based off of the Rose Blanchard case too, where that that the mother had basically like controlled this girl's life, and then at her extended boyfriend or whoever, then that they had basically ended up doing a double homicide on the mom. But then that basically then it's just a whole big case about that. But then to me that to me that's a very good plot hook to basically give like a halfling is like pretending to be like a human child, while then that they are basically, like siphoning resources away from this human family or something like that.
I think another thing about like if we're talking about like real world events in games, for some people, I've talked to people like this, especially when I was younger. Having been able to role play similar events in games has actually helped them process their feelings about the matter. If that makes sense. Like I understand not wanting to like throw people into things, but it also allows people to kind of process how they're feeling, and they can react to it in a way in the game world as opposed they might not have the opportunity to do in real life.
That's true. It's one reason I wanted to try to use D&D at school, and then the support I got for it over summer school wasn't great because they kept changing how everything was supposed to function, so it just kind of fell apart. But I've seen D&D used as therapy a lot with that. I mean, like, and talking, but Neysa also mentioned earlier with like archetypes. Is there always going to be that one guard that sees the barbarian walking into town and immediately be suspicious of them? Yeah, because and I've had that happen in Holy Winds. That Peregrine, she's the better part of 8 foot tall, Earth Ganassi who looks like a Goliath, who carries a giant battle axe and wears a pelt, and she stands out. And I mean, the benefit for them in that story is that Stout Elb is kind of the frontier. If they were ever to go to Long Elb, the larger of the two continents, with the exception of the dwarf character that Cannon's playing, Tarl, who's a noble from another land, the whole rest of the party would be stared at because I got two Shatterkai elves, a high elf that was raised by the Finn, which is mostly orcish culture, and a massive barbarian. And Long Elb is the heart of the theocracy, and that's where most of the people that are higher up in it live, and so they'd immediately have to deal with those type of things in their way. But again, I know what my players are comfortable and not comfortable dealing with. So, and I think what Nate was saying, like the big thing is as long as you know what people are comfortable with or what they want to work through, then you can put a lot of these themes in there.
Yeah, that's
Our longer
absolutely
running
true.
game shop, we have a player who's also a DM, and in part of what I've been planning for the long running game at the shop for the last few weeks, they're going to be doing a lot of plane hopping now. They're on like a big scavenger hunt type of situation. They need some stuff, fetch questing. And so I was looking for like input and feedback from the group on where they might want to go, and we got everything from Exandria to Ixalan to Strixhaven, the Feywild, as well as this one individual. Her name is Brittany. She offered up her homebrew land, her world, if I would like to take a look at it. So I said sure. And her world, New Adama, is essentially an inverse archetype of where non-humans are the ruling class and humans are considered the minority. Humans are less than. And it's almost perfect for this party, because there's not a human in the group, not a single one. Every one of them is non-human, which would be perfect. They'd be able to infiltrate, but it's also just the way she's constructed this world. This New Adama is very, very intriguing. She's done a very good job of taking every single stereotype and prejudice and flipping it on its head, where the human players, but they're non-human characters, you'll be able to see it from the other side. It's a very interesting setup, and I cannot wait to get a little more into it and actually see how it goes.
All right, then that sounds very, very interesting, and then I know that I am definitely going to be looking forward to that. But so that so then that the next bullet point that I kind of have is like, how would we like avoid overly use like stereotyping, such as you always make your elves either British or French. Your dwarves are seen as Scottish, and your drow is always seen as evil Australian. Let's just talk about that.
I'll jump in on this one first, if y'all don't mind. The way I handle drow is that if you are a follower of Loth, you are considered a drow in Arax. And then with the theocracy, if you do not follow their approved gods or their tolerated gods, they will call you a drow. Because of long ago, when the theocracy was younger, they ran into actual followers of Loth. So they're dark elves that have never heard of Loth in my world. Because I believe that drow is kind of a culture. And that it is a religion that has dominated that culture to form what it is. So having that there with it that's how I handle the drow, is that if you follow Loth, you're going to be considered a drow, whether or not you are a dark elf. As for their accent, this has been ruined to me because of R.A. Salvatore. If you've ever heard, have any of y'all actually heard R.A. Salvatore in an interview?
He's very Italian.
No.
Yeah.
No, he's from Boston. He is from he's a Packy from Boston. And so every time he's like, "Oh yeah," and this is going to be a terrible impersonation, but "Oh yeah, Dritz is really wicked, eh? Like he's just going to come in and stab somebody," and then D&D was all like, "Yeah, that sounds wicked," and I'm like, now because I've heard him, all I ever hear the drow that worship Loth sounding like is just like a really bad New Jersey Boston accent, which to me
God.
is hilarious. Dwarves. The only reason I still go Scottish with them is because I feel like most dwarves have a gruff voice unless I describe the character as being different. And I threw everybody in Lost Seas for a loop. All my elves are Australian. Just, it's like, and then this very elegant high elven man with this immaculate long black hair wearing a detailed ornate cloak that has the symbol of the Master of Laws comes in and goes, "Good day. Good on ya. How are you doing?" And it broke the table because they didn't expect that. But I mean, one of my favorite things is if y'all haven't listened to High Rollers, a British podcast, all the dwarves are Texan.
Oh God.
Because they're British, so all their dwarves are Texan, and I absolutely love it. It's like, all right, I'm going to shoot him with my crossbow, and I got y'all's backs. So I mean, I don't necessarily think the accents are anything super bad, but like I think that the way we could handle a lot of this is don't stop and think about the biological origins of your character. Think about the culture they grew up in. Like the Finn that I made, it's predominantly orcish. Like it was started by orcs, but there are half elves, half orcs, dwarves, humans that have come in and they worship the same deity. But I mean, it's mostly a very naturalistic, like you'll find a ton of druids that go and find the Finn because here's a society that wants to be out in nature. And yeah, I might not agree with their gods. They might not agree with my view on things, but we're all going to work together to survive. And I went along with that. And so now Emily's character, Arvax, is a high elf that was raised by orcs. So when she comes in, everybody sees this very beautiful blonde-haired elven woman wearing plate mail who then will shoot a snot rocket onto the floor and go, "Give me a beer." So I
That's
think
beautiful.
I think a lot of solution to some of the problems people have had with race in D&D is, well, one, if it's written in a book, it's a suggestion. But two, start thinking of things as a culture because that's a smaller area. Like, yeah, there's humans all across the United States, but we got different cultures across here. We got humans all over the world, and we have different cultures. We don't have the complication of dealing with other humanoids still being around with us. At least not since Neanderthal died out. But, so there's cultures that develop and there's things that change. And I think if people started looking at more like that instead of this is elves, this is dwarves, this is drow, this is human, it opens up a lot more opportunities for you to have fun and play with the sandbox that is D&D.
Do you Do y'all want to go back to the source? Have y'all seen the controversy with Lord of the Rings, the new series? It's not really a controversy; it's just people being dumb. But
Oh, what did they say
Rather
this
not
time?
talk about it.
Male dwarves don't have beards.
no, it's really more about the race of the characters they're upset about. Of course, it's the dwarfs don't have beards. The female dwarves don't have beards. But what can you do about that? That's not that big a deal to me.
What? Every
Supposed to have beards.
dwarf is born with a beard.
It's puberty. You don't need rock dust in your nostrils. You got to have a beard and a mustache to keep it out of your nostrils. It's the whole point.
But yeah, then that it is just sound like up in like my world. Then I don't want to try to take the spotlight from somebody. It is just like that. The players who have been to Uno Nebula in my world, it is like a region that is about the size of Texas in a sense, but it is predominantly elf. So I also have that this territory of that the elves that are called the Gem Blossom territories, which is basically that they are essentially tribal sects of elves based off of gemstones, with basically the emerald set is just actually connected to the seasonal owls, which is basically my version of that the Feywild for my world. As far as accents go, I would say that the most stereotyping that I have done, which that that it just seems just more appropriate for me, is just to do my Goliaths up in my Russian accent, kind of like Zarya Helmsplitter, that the pitmaster of the Snowflake Barracks, which is basically think of like a arena type of dealio.
It's a coliseum.
It's a coliseum. Oh God. So any other thoughts on this topic, guys?
So I've played 2 drow characters now. One of them, Watcher, debuted during Extra Life this last November. And I played him as a lot of the backstory didn't really get brought up, but he's a Rossona drow. He was from the Kryn dynasty in Exandria, and he has since absconded himself from that for reasons. And so his accent came out very very Western, but mostly when he's drunk, which he was most always drunk. Now that he's getting a little more table time in one of Spence's games, he's got a bit more of a mellow accent until he's excited or until he's drunk, and then it comes out a little more Western. And then my second drow character is actually it's actually Watcher's son with an Eladrin woman, and so the kid came out more drow, and his accent is a lot more mellow and chill because he's a bit of a young bard type of individual, and so he takes a little more after his mother on the accent.
I was going to say
But
very,
physically,
very posh with that.
just a little bit, until he gets scared, and then it's a little bit crazy. But yeah, so I mean, I feel like having accents reflect personality and or background and or culture more than racially tied in is the way to go. But you can tie race and culture together if you do it in a regional type of situation. But yeah, that's I don't have very many accents. I don't have very many voices, and so everything kind of starts to bleed together after a while. But yeah, specifically for specific characters, I try to reflect personality and or background in their voice.
All right. So then let's try to talk about like promoting a little bit more diversity up in our games and stuff across the table. Starting with just, that the obvious, making diverse NPCs, duh. I mean, that, that you can have like, saw that this really, really cool thing on Twitter. I forget somebody had did it, but then that they had essentially had made basically that a wheelchair combat guide for basically characters that are basically paralyzed, and then that they basically have those special needs, like crutches, a wheelchair, etc. And then that I just think that that is a awesome job. What do y'all think?
The battle wheelchair has always been really cool since I saw that, because I just thought it was pretty cool. It's like, what's this? We're gonna make a wheelchair that can go into battle. Dope. I want to see how this functions. I need this. Please, I need to see how this functions correctly. Then again, that's usually me when like a really cool new gadget comes out in woodworking and or D&D. It's like, all right, show me how it works. I want to see how it works.
Going off of that, if you play in a group that deals with like if you do like modified critical hits or like lingering injuries or stuff like that, you have the option for potential amputees, and you can actually function within that parameter of having like modified prosthetics that will work in a fantasy setting. This is where artificers come in really handy if you have one in the party. But that's another facet as well that I keep wanting to specifically make an amputee type character, because I feel like that would be really, really interesting to play with.
I think
So
I made one. Go on. Somebody else was going.
yeah, so we talked, or you mentioned including like diverse characters and NPCs.
Correct.
I want to go back to something that was mentioned in the previous question. I know, as far as I'm concerned, the diverse characters and NPCs comes from like the different lands they're from and the mannerisms they might have. So you have, I've got in my homebrew a Deborah dynasty, and it's a desert dwelling nation. So you have a lot of creatures or beings who are more akin to hot temperatures, like Earth Genasies and whatnot. And so their mannerisms are going to be very different from, say, a kingdom that's very temperate and far to the south. And you might have two Earth Genasies from both places, but they're going to act very different. And so one of the things I do is I find like the diversity from the different races. And even like as I said, two Earth Genasies can be very different depending on the areas they're from. And so I kind of just lean into that. So, and I don't really, I mean, I give short descriptions of these characters, but for the most part, they're just no names. You run into them once and then you're done, because people go in and out and about, and there's a select few, and that when they are involved with the party, they're there for a reason. And so I try my best to reflect the reason for their being there reflects their background. So if you've got like a duo that's that one builds weapons and the other makes them magic, it might be a dwarf, because they're usually known for smithing. Again, stereotype, but I like my dwarves a certain way. And the other might be a elf. But that's a heavily stereotyped example. But we can always turn it into like, oh, the dwarf is actually the enchanter and the elf is the smith.
Absolutely. I mean that that just going back to basically like diverse NPCs that I had just typed up in our chat, basically that that up in like Nate's Waterdeep game, that I had played a variant human fighter, Abigail Kiyoshi, that long story short, that she was part of this military operation, think like Spec Ops or something, and then that they had got set up, and then that they fought up against a red Oni which had basically used its club and basically smashed her, I want to say, left arm in to the point to where that it was broken and then irreparable. But luckily that she had a gnome friend who was also an artificer who had basically built her this magical arm, thus that she became an arcane archer that way. And then I just think that doing just interesting characters like that can also add in a bit of intrigue.
See, I'll jump in with NPCs. I have learned with live games, I need to put more work into the NPCs and their descriptions. For certain things, like when y'all went to the to Ember and you met the Ash Keeper, and then I had to start describing how everybody looked kind of sallow and like very, very skinny and stuff like that. I realized I had to give a little bit more of a description than just what I would normally do online, because online on Monday nights, I'll just say they're a half elven individual and maybe give a hair color or say that they're tall. And then I let the rest of the party fill in what they see this character as. And then I make note of if they talk to an NPC more than once, because I got a feeling, especially with the Monday night crew, they're about to adopt them. So far, they have adopted no less than 4 NPCs, including a kobold that had been in a murderous rage attacking and killing the city, is now their mascot, and they named him Greg. And he just constantly uses disguise self to look as a gnome or a halfling so that nobody tries to kill him, because he was part of a horde of kobolds that sacked the city. So I've learned to make note, if like, my big thing is if they talk to an NPC more than once, note it, and then start actually fleshing them out more, because they're going to come back. At least that's my Monday crew. Live games I've run with y'all, I have to put a little bit more thought, because especially if it's a one-shot, this is the only time you're going to see that NPC, and I want most moments in a one-shot to be a little bit memorable. So, and then thinking about making them diverse, that takes like nothing at all to do, because it's a few extra details, and then you flesh that out, and then that also fleshes out how they act with somebody else. So just kind of roll with it, I guess.
Well, I'm glad you brought up the details on the NPCs, because I do think that's one of the tools that we as DMs have that's a bit more potent than a lot of people realize. There's power in detail. As a DM, you can very easily show your players who's important and who's not important to the story you're telling, depending on how much detail. I've got my NPC character list pulled up here real quick, and I've got one character who's got 3 paragraphs worth of details. And then I've got another down here at the bottom who just has 2 sentences. And it's very obvious which character is important to the story and which one is just a kind of one-off.
Now, I will say this is a benefit to online gamings like Roll20, is you can create an NPC token character and keep them in like key figures and just add notes to it as you go. And so that works really good for me, because it's like the more they want this one character to be an asshole that I've already decided is the bad guy, I'm like, all right, I'm going to take some of what you're saying and add them to this character. Like they have already made the Richter. They've already made the Richter of the town into very much more of an asshole than I intended him to be. I meant him to be passive aggressive, but they've decided this, and I'm like, some of this is better than what I had planned. I'm adding this to
them. My newer game at the shop, they one of the players, her character is a human wizard who is essentially functioning like a traveling teacher, like one of the muleback Appalachie librarian type of archetypes, which is really really fun. And so they ended up she fell in with the party after they'd already been on the road a little bit, so she's like the newcomer. And when they got to their destination town, she wanted to know, have like her character's been around this area before, wanted to know if she could find an old friend um who would maybe have some books that she could look up a few things in, stuff that had been coming up over the last couple of days. And so I came up with this, and it should have just been a one-off character named Delilah, just a really quick thrown together kind of recluse, crazy lady, crazy cat lady person. Um, but Delilah actually became a a source of a lot of good information for this character and by extension the party. And so what I tend to do is I try to come up with a list of names for a and like I have a sheet per location. Like I have a sheet for every village, for every waypoint. And I basically just try to come up with a few names. And then as my players are telling me what they want to look for in this town, I'll assign a name to a location. To so Delilah became the crazy book lady, crazy cat lady who likes pies and says her books bite in Pina's Cavern Town South. And her a few of the other individuals in that town, like I've got one that's like an exotic weapons artificer, makes like rope darts and like just various ninja things. There's a few alchemists who like brew experimental ales. And so it's just it my sheet keeps expanding, but it starts from just a list of names and then goes as they become essential, they get their personalities and everything like that. And every time I come up with a new NPC, I try to make something that subverts the expectation. Um, whether that's the book's bite or whether that's the ancient tiefling who shouldn't be ancient has amnesia or has Alzheimer's. Just different things. Um, even if they're really just overt to make them kind of memorable and stick.
Very good answers, Nate. Do you have anything to say about this before we
Nothing
move
that
on?
wasn't nothing that wasn't already said. You know,
Okay.
I really don't really have anything to add.
Okay then, fair enough, fair enough. Now then, that the pin ultimate topic that we have before that, the last one is basically not overdoing it with just eccentric characters. For example, every that you know like that you know like everyone's favorite Villararian contractor, Bobby O Glittershine. You know, so what do y'all think about that?
Uh, Having some flamboyant characters and over the top characters is always fun, but if everybody's that way, it doesn't stand out as much. Like in my world, there is one over the top, zany, ridiculous, and flamboyant wizard named Mixel the Magnificent. Uh, he is in charge of uh, he. If there's ever something that says Mixel on it, the folks that have played my games for a long time all of a sudden start groaning because there is a chance that it will do something awesome. There's a chance it will hurt you. Like Mixel's Marvelous Mix-Up Machine is a gotcha game, and you could win something as awesome as a +3 sword for 500 gold. Or you could get a ring of teleportation that only teleports itself 1,000 feet away. So there is also the Vest of Feather Fall, which is it did allow you to cast Feather Fall, but the whole time while you're wearing it, you would feel feathers tickling you, so it gave you disadvantage on social interactions because you're always trying to stop yourself from giggling. So Mixel is kind of like that. And also, I do have flamboyant characters or very odd characters, but I try to put them few and far between, and I don't try to make them just a trope. I don't want my my gay nobleman to come off as Uncle Arthur from Bewitched, and that be all that there is about him. Yes, he might be foppish. Yes, he might lounge about and try to show off his opulence and what he prefers, but there's going to be more to him than just that, so I don't make him a one-trick pony, or I don't make him just that one aspect and try to amplify it to 11, because that's, to me, it doesn't seem respectful to do that, and two, it's been done. It's been done so much that it's become a bad trope. So while they might be a flamboyant character, that's not the only thing there is about them.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else?
What do you think
I
about?
think they're.
Go ahead, Nessa. Go ahead.
You first, because I have a feeling you were about to ask something I was about to answer. So.
Okay. No, I was going to say, what about like magic items that are no longer kind of outdated, like the belt that turns you into the opposite sex? Do you think that's something that should still be in the game, or?
As long as you don't make it a joke.
Right.
As long as it's not a joke. Like, I've seen someone that took a scene from Order of the Stick and like explained out why the belt of gender swap was being used by these ogres. It's because it was their population was dying, and it was like mostly males, so someone put the belt on so they could literally procreate and continue on having children, as a very utilitarian, useful item. I've also seen it used in some games to help some people in character transition so that they can help themselves in real life to do that. So, I mean, I don't think necessarily the item is bad. The way it can be used is bad. And if you don't want to use it in your game, don't. But if it's what somebody wants for their character and they don't mean it as a joke or an insult, I'm fine with having an item like that.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the only item that came to mind. You know, there's always been some strange stuff out there, especially in second edition. I was just curious.
That's where I stand on items like that. Now, I've allowed a love potion in one of my games, mostly because it was going to be used on an NPC, and I was not upset with that happening to a character I was controlling personally. But I sent the player that actually went and bought one, because I just said, anything at the apothecary that's within this price range in the books is there. I didn't stop and think that this old second edition player would grab this. And I sent a message, you cannot use this on someone if their player is not cool with you using it on them, though. And he responded very positively to that. Like, yeah, that's fine. So...
Yeah, and I feel like it's important to certain things that I ban from my game, and that's definitely one of them. Anything that takes agency away from a player, unless it's like something to do with the story, but I'm not going to let another player take agency away from another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's completely understandable.
Yeah.
That's actually something that's worth...
Go
ahead.
No, go ahead, since we're still on that topic.
Well, I wanted to talk a little bit more about, player agency and player-to-player interaction, because I've seen it, handled multiple ways with simple skill check and a competing skill check to RP it out, and I feel like it's something that we could probably expand on a bit more. So how do you guys usually handle like player-to-player agency when it comes to like trying to do certain things, like say you have a rogue is trying to manipulate a paladin into doing something they probably shouldn't do?
I have a pretty good example with Hewitt when we first started role-playing. Do you remember when I tried to murder you?
When you shot Axum in the back of the head?
Yes.
Oh, that was a great moment. Oh no! If it was such a great moment, he played my character so bad. Like it was, my character was dumb. His character was smart, and this is also one of my first times playing. And Nate he outgamed me. Like I was a little upset at first because it's like, oh man, my character's dead, and then everyone's like, no, you're not dead, but Nate stole all your crap. I'm like, oh
No, not only that. Like I had instant karma too. The rest of the group was like, no, we don't think so. So as long as there's consequences for the actions, yeah, you know
yeah,
what I mean.
Yeah, that's fair. Neysa, that you need to say something.
I wanted to go back to the concept of NPCs as like one-off like trope characters, like this
Sure.
is their sole personality trait. I
Mhm.
feel like that does have a place if you do it the right way though, because if you look at realistically, there are people who make a sole trait their entire identity. Like it's immature and but people do it. And so having a character that portrays that as an NPC, as long as it's even if it is just a moment in the bar and someone thinks they're God's gift to women and that's it. Like if that's their entire personality for that scene, that's realistic. I feel like it doesn't take anything away from the world building to have those like soul trope characters. Um but as far as like characters that do recur, characters that have a more important role to play in the story, yeah, having them as trope characters is not necessarily the best unless it's a player choice to play a trope character, which is fine. I personally don't have a problem with that. Like Fabio, I feel like his entire identity is the flamboyant interior designer. Like that is his identity. And to me, that works because I've known people like that. Versus my Erebos character, who is a flamboyant gay, but has trauma and other aspects to him that make him a little more morose sometimes, and so he has his mood swings. Um, both characters are valid. Both characters portray a facet of community and a facet of reality that matter. So, um, I feel like tropes have their place, and they shouldn't just be sliced away.
Right, right. And then to get to like Bosch's point of view about basically like like contested player checks versus if that players want to do something towards something that that it has been times to where then that up in your game, Nisa, that I would just like just kind of like give you just that a knowing look about like I am about to roll a insight check on like let's just say Kralia for instance, and then that I will roll that, and
Right.
then that that you will make them roll a deception check, and then to me then that's fair because then
Right.
that basically is how like people act up in like real life in a sense if that you can easily because that if that one thing out of D&D that we can all agree with is that we have some very very good, excuse my French, bullshit meters in a sense. We can easily tell whenever people are trying to lie. Can't we agree on that?
a bit. Now, to be fair, y'all
So
running games up at the game shop, y'all deal with something that I personally don't have to deal with that much because anybody that plays in my games, I've played multiple ones with. So I don't have some random person that comes in and wants to play the rogue death incarnate who's going to try to seduce the bard. And that's their whole point of coming and sitting at the table that night, which I'll be honest, that's the type of person I say leave my table.
I mean, we
yeah,
had that situation.
me and Spence, we've had a bad player before, like a nightmare player, and the way it ended up resolving, try not to take too much time with this, but the way it ended up resolving was that player um had played in a one shot of mine and it wasn't a great experience, but then came to Spencer's table wanting to play like the following week. And during playtime that day, basically took a job from my character and then flubbed it up, and then blamed me, my character, for leaving him, for ditching out when he flubbed up the job I'd hired him to do. And so, like, Spence, but we were already at Uno Nebula at the like the arena, like the gladiatorial coliseum, and I was just like, you want to just settle this in the arena, like, because this kid just would not let up. And so basically, we had a grudge match in the arena because the world building was there for it, and the setup was ready to go. And so we ended up, there was a lot going on that night, but basically the player just went way over the top and wasn't a community player, and is no longer allowed at the shop for some things that happened after the fact.
Yeah.
Handling it in a 1v1 in character, because that's literally where the story was going, is something that me and Spence both agreed kind of just needed to happen. But I don't know. It is hard to say, like, no, you're a problem player and you need to get away from my table. Like, it's hard to put your foot down like that, but I guess sometimes it needs to happen.
Well, the main with that, I'll say it's not been hard for me the couple times I actually ran something at the shop to tell a couple folks, no, there's no room for you at the table, because I already knew how they played from Second Home Gaming. But well, I was using that as an example mostly because I don't, and this is a blessing as a DM. I don't have to worry about anyone that's in this chat room right now or anybody that's in the TBA group doing something that someone else is not insanely uncomfortable with. Like, or really doing something that anybody's not comfortable with. Like, I don't have to worry about that. There's no, I'm going to seduce this character, let's roll. It's like that, I'm going to go ahead and put a foot down as a DM there. No, that's not how that works. You can try to persuade them, but then it leads to a role play moment. It does not mean, oh, I rolled a nat 20 on the persuasion roll. No, that's not how that works. Because that takes away something from the other players. And like Basch and like everybody was saying, that the faculties and the choice of the player must still be there. Now, if they're down for it and they're good with it, that's perfectly fine. But like, I lied to you and you want to check me. Okay. All of us are mature enough that, okay, we did the dice roll. My deception was lower than your insight. So yeah, I'm lying, or I'm telling mostly the truth, and we'll say that, and that's enough for everybody at the table to run off of. And like I said, that's a blessing. And it's one of the things I'm very happy about with our gaming group. But I mean, like I said, in the game store, not knowing who will show up at your table, sometimes that would drive me crazy. And also, like I said before, there's a couple people like, no, I'm not running this for you. I know what you do.
Yeah, yeah. Then I can definitely see that. And in that, I know that we are going a little bit over just an hour. That I really do want to get to that. This last point, which is just basically just simple: becoming an ally to both your players and also to just like just up in general, just becoming an ally. I know from just my own personal life that I am an ally to that the LGBTQ community and also to other, organizations that promote diversity, that I am part of a diversity and an inclusive committee, to where that the sole goal is to basically promote that, in a sense. Like, then that, as me as a player, I have been forever grateful for all of the DMs and players here that who have been patient enough with my stuttering, because it makes me feel like that I ruin the experience each time that I am flubbing up so bad that the accent, and then that the whole illusion breaks of that the character that I am being.
I don't ever see it as breaking the immersion when your stutter starts getting the best of you. Um, there's been moments where my brain just goes completely blank on what it is I'm trying, and I say brain words, and that's my equivalency. Like I feel like it's not something you deal with alone. And but I do agree. We lucked out at least at the shop with most people being on the level with that and realizing that the ability to talk eloquently is not the sole trait necessary in a DM. But I don't think it ever breaks the immersion too terribly much. The and you're pretty good at finding ways to get your point across if a word is giving you too much trouble. So
The stuttering's never been an issue at the table with me, Spence. I mean, that's part of you, and you know how to work around it. You know what to do with it, and it is you. It's part of you. So I mean, there's nothing.
I'll be honest
there's nothing
too.
wrong.
It's never stopped me from knowing what you're saying. It's fine. I don't even notice, honestly.
But with being an ally at the table, the easiest thing to do is one of the easiest things to do in life: tolerance and kindness. Because everybody just wants to have fun. Everybody wants to play the game. And it doesn't take much to try to share. I mean, especially we all love this game. We would not be doing what we're doing right now. We would not have been doing this for years if we didn't love this game. So the point is share it with people. And that's just what you got to do.
Yeah. Anybody
the
else?
mantra that I try to oh the mantra that I try to use is respect existence or expect resistance. Pretty much everyone is welcome and valid at my table unless they prove otherwise by intolerance or disrespect. And that I feel like if it's that deeply a part of who you are off the table, then it's going to come through at the table without any issue. Um, so
Basch, got anything to say? All right.
So I'll start off with what I want to say by saying tabletop games is for everyone, period. End of story. If someone wants to play, they should be able to play, regardless of any features outside of their control or anything like that. And as it's been said before, this is a game that we all enjoy, and there's a certain part of us that wants to share this joy with anybody who wants to join our table. I've had a few players come and leave my games, and before I add them in, the first thing I do is I conversate with them. It's like, hey, this is what I expect of you as a player. This is what you can expect of me as a DM. Is there like anything more, anything I should be aware about? And it comes down to like personal experiences and things you've been through. Like, hey, here's this one thing that happened. I don't feel comfortable dealing with it. And it's like, all right, it's fine. I would, if it comes up, I will handle it in a very different way. There's I guess I might be a little different because I view people as like individual people. It's like your experiences are very different from somebody else's, and I tend to treat people that way so long as they give me the same respect. As far as having different people with different cultures at your table, that all comes back to session 0, or if they're joining your game from like a late point after it started, having that one-on-one conversation with them. I do my best to try and be open with people. Like if they do something during the session, I'll maneuver myself as the DM in such a way that kind of shuts it down, and then I'll address it privately after the session. But if it continues to come up, I'll just be like, look, last warning, do it again, you're gone. But like I said, for the most part, I think people who are interested or wanting to join a table or play D&D, they're there to have fun. And like we said very early on to the podcast, was people are here to, for the most part, just unwind from the stress of life. So when you're in the game, you're not like you're a character. You're role playing your character. So you're viewing everything going on through your character, not through you as the in real life person, if that makes sense.
That absolutely makes sense, and then that that is all fine points. But I do believe then that is about the amount of time that we do have on this bonus roundtable. Thank you guys on at the panel so much for basically that this very, very good topic that we had a very good discussion. Awesome job, you guys, and then I will be giving it over to Miro for our announcements.
We will not have a game tonight. We're going to take this one off.
Wait, what just happened?
Yeah,
What?
no, that was quick. It's like you blink your eyes and that was
What
pretty much
just?
over.
Oh no! What happened?
Wanna,
Oh God!
Give that boy Fi a chance.
I apologize.
What?
I apologize. Somehow I backed out of Twitch, and then the broadcast from the main page started going over everything. So we caught a bit of the main page of Twitch for some reason.
Oh no!
Okay, so I apologize. 'Cause I thought all of a sudden I thought one of y'all were saying, "Oh wait, hold up, what happened?" I'm like, "What?" Anyway, we're not going to be playing a game tonight. We're taking the night off because folks need a break, and we'll pick up next week with probably a one-shot, another random Grant Howitt game. We got some of those lined up until Zeta wants to run Into the Woods again. Monday will be Lost Seas. Thursday will be Tears of Kairos. Am I correct?
Yo.
Okay, so that's what we're going on. Somewhere, I think maybe Wednesday or randomly in there, Kyle from Lafayette and I will be playing the Call of Cthulhu dating sim of Sucker for Love. God bless all of us, and damn all of us for the same thing, because it's a thing. It's a thing. So that's what we got going on that way. Socials, if you look on YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook, we are Team Bonus Action. If you look on Twitter, we are at Team _bonus_team.
Mm-hmm.
And we are Team Bonus Action on Linktree. So that's where we are. We got multiple folks out on Twitter as well, and some folks that do Instagram. I think it's Nate Paints Warhammer.
Yeah, that's right.
And I think we have an Instagram, but I have no clue about anything with Instagram because, as I've said before, I'm a bit of a Luddite. So that's what we got going on. And since Knox is not here, everybody,
2, 3. Don't
let your meat
Don't let
low.
your meat low.
Good night, everybody. Comment, like, subscribe.
That delay
Bye.
is awful.
It's a lot harder to do it online.
It is just a bit.
But yeah, that was a very good conversation.